and they're dropping it. Megaton bombs in the offices and the promises of the president won't save you in your residence. That acid ring gon' make you sick, goddamn. I'ma need some shots for this. Goes one for the greed and the politics, two for the guns and the government, three for the people that be watching it. Cause if you ain't done nothing, you accomplice. Now you knocking on heaven's door. Ain't nobody home what you came here for. Pour one more for the sin of the saints. Yeah, it's all good till it ain't.
I wanna scream at the top of my lungs, like the night on fire with the tip of my tongue. Save my soul when the reaper comes, 'cause we ain't tuning down till the damage done.
All right, so welcome aboard, everybody. My name is Doobyis. This is an offshoot of my mix show that I do every week. The mix show is called After the Smoke is Clear. I play independent hip-hop from coast to coast across Canada and try to just highlight kind of all corners, all scenes. And after doing the second season of it, I was realizing that, you know, I wanted to dig deeper and find out more about the artists themselves, more about the scenes that they're coming from, and kind of just help to share some of that knowledge, you know, across the board, because I think that there are kind of a lot of fans of hip hop spread out across in the major cities across Canada, but that they seem to just know their own hometowns crew and not really spread the love as much as maybe they could. So the whole point of this show is to learn a little bit more about scenes across the country and about the artists that make up those scenes. So here with me today are two of the the MCs, I guess, from the group Illvis Freshly. I've got Danimal House and Dr. Zoo with me. Yeah, you guys just put out an album here. What was that, like a month ago? A little bit over now?
Just at the end of 2020, actually. 2021. So a few months back.
So I slept on it till you guys sent it over. Okay. So did you record it before pandemic hit then? Like, or was this a pandemic project, like early in 2020?
Pandemic project for sure.
Yeah, it was. I hadn't really intended to do an album, but then since we had all this extra time because we didn't have shows and all the usual stuff going on,
yeah,
we were like, you know what, let's just work on another album. And actually, a lot of the stuff I just kind of produced and worked on. We kind of worked on it remotely a little bit just because we weren't hanging out as much. But yeah, we kind of just took some extra time to make a record, and it wasn't really. It was kind of just a record for us, you know what I mean? We weren't thinking about shows or touring it as much. We were just like, yeah, let's just write a record.
That actually surprises me that you say that, because listening to it, like I listened to the whole album again. I'd listened to it when you first sent it over, but I listened to it again here just leading up to the interview. And like it's so crowd friendly. Like that, I mean, there's maybe one or two cuts on there that like you wouldn't want to perform at a festival or whatever, I guess. But even those, you probably could get away with it if you wanted to like switch up the tempo a little bit, right? So I know you guys.
I'd say all of our music is pretty live show friendly.
Yeah, that was the vibe I got.
I think though, like Zeus, what he's saying is more is like it was a chance to not worry about any of the extraneous stuff and just make music for the sake of it, which happens to line up with playing live shows because that's who we are. But it was nice to not have those pressures and expectations in a way, although obviously it sucks to not be able to tour your project. But on the other hand, you can sort of just like really go all in on an idea or concept or just have fun because there's no chance. Normally there's like a very minimal chance it'll make you some money. Now there was no chance, so you can't tour it. So you might as well just go all in on the fun.
Yeah, spend all the time and put in all the effort, make sure everything is perfected in studio. Yeah. So what was the recording process like then? Like, was it different compared to how you guys had done your first two albums? I looked and you guys have 3 albums on like streaming platforms, so I assume there's 3 total.
Jesus handles most of our, if not all of our production. So basically it was just a process of really moving out of the studio where we had a shared space and setting up this space in his house right here. And now we have another studio back in a shared space as well. But a lot of it was just you taking on some of the responsibilities.
Yeah, I think that the way that I work is I kind of produce a lot of stuff. Like I'll produce a lot of beats, and then some of them I'll be like, oh, you know what? Like I like that one. That's probably a good beat for Illvis Freshly. And some of my beats I'll sell. And I was making a lot of beats, and also just working with like other musicians and just kind of getting creative. And I had a backlog of a bunch of like half completed songs.
Right.
And so when kind of COVID hit and we weren't doing as much, I kind of started going back through and being like, oh, like some of these are cool, and like developing some of those ideas a little bit more. And it actually spanned like three different studios, actually four, I guess, including this room, because we had a studio in a main space that we were renting, which was really cool. And there's a bunch of our other artists there, and it was like a whole vibe at that spot, and that was really cool. So some of the beats and things were started there, and then we ended up moving into that place shut down because nobody could pay rent because of COVID, and just the whole thing went down. So it sucked because it was a cool spot.
Yeah.
And then it was called Submersive Studios. And then we moved into a gym. We had like this room in our friend's gym, which was kind of sweet, except for we didn't really have that much access to it, but it was kind of great for the time. So we did a bunch more work at this small little room in a gym. And then I moved actually into this room here, kind of in my house. It's like an extra room. Wasn't perfectly treated or anything, but it was kind of fine just for getting creative. And for me producing on headphones and stuff like that, it was cool, and just to map everything out. And then finally, by the end of it, the gym, our drummer owns the gym. And so he moved to a new spot. We actually got to build our own studio in the back of this building that he got for his gym. And
this is like properly designed to be a studio.
Nice.
So the other one was us. The other one was us having to cram into a storage closet because COVID, we couldn't pay the bills.
Sure, it's a room you can put gear in, but it may not be a studio. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was like great for if you had like two people, but the full band could never be in the room at the same time. So the energy was a little weird actually for some things. But then now where we're at now, we're not there tonight just for convenience. But the studio that we were able to build in the gym is like has a separate entrance, has a separate recording room and jam room, and it's just other than the fact it's too damn cold there all the time because Mike's paying up heat.
It's getting warmer.
No, it's great though. It's really cool. It's a cool spot.
You mentioned that sometimes you'd only be able to get two of you in there. So if Dr. Zoo is making beats, I know you've also got a guitar player, a drummer, and then a DJ, correct? So
yeah. I can explain that process a little more for you.
Yeah. Let's do that, because I'm wondering how that comes together from the.
So a lot of times I would like come up with an idea or like 3 or 5 ideas, and I'd be like, we'd all get together and we would kind of cram everybody into the room, and just have a couple beers and be like, all right, check out this beat. Like, what do you guys think of that? You like that? Cool. No, it's whack. Okay, cool. Next beat. And we kind of go through and identify things that we want to work on more.
And at that point, like, they all have drum machine drums, like, I assume?
Yeah, like
okay.
I've laid everything out, and I have like the project, and I can play them like just I'll make like a version of the beat that's pretty basic,
right.
And then I'll let everybody fill everything else out, and it's actually kind of more efficient to have one person in there with me at a time. Like if it's Mike laying down some drum stuff, or the DJ laying down some cuts or singing, or the guitar player. It's actually more efficient. I can only really record properly one person at a time anyways.
Yeah.
So I just kind of like, worked in that sense, and we'd all kind of go do our homework to kind of come back in, and I'd kind of try to get final takes. And then we'd all get together and listen to where it was at and, and all argue about how we should change it and figure that stuff out.
Yeah. And like a lot of the times we would be like hanging out, and Zeus will be like, hanging out, having a drink or two, and then Zeus would be like, hey, check these out at someone's house. We'll all listen to it while we're all on couches, and then be like, okay, now when we go back to the lab, this is how we're gonna partition our time. Yeah. So it was sort of just change from having a more open-ended approach where, we could be in a space where we're going back and forth and come up with ideas, just having to be a little more structured about it, be like, okay, listening, planning, party. And I think that's also just a process of getting older and more experienced as a band, and everyone more comfortable with their roles and relationships and processes.
I just noticed as you were pronouncing Dr. Zoo's name here. Am I saying it wrong that it's Zoo? Should I be saying Zeus? like Jesus? Zeus?
There was one time, like when I was like, young, I was like, Dr. Zeus, that's a cool rap name. And then like I was like, it's kind of a little bit corny, and I was like, it's not really that cool after a while. And then I was like, all right, like I'm just gonna go by Doc Zoo because like whatever, who cares? That's close enough.
Shorten it up.
Nobody knows what it means. Like sweet. And
but it's worth mentioning his name's Jesus. So when I say Zeus,
yeah,
I went over to your website, and both of your names make so much sense to me because it's Dan House and Jesus. I forget your last name, but yeah. Yeah, okay. It all falls into place.
To be called Jesus and the Mighty Ducks.
But yeah, like, and also like we kind of put less emphasis on like our rap name aliases.
Personal name.
We just kind of like Illvis Freshly is the group, but we just kind of like had funny names, just to joke around with ourselves. We didn't take the individual names too seriously.
Fair enough. So how'd you come?
My coworkers call me Dale.
That's fair. Yeah, they're kind of closer to like nicknames than anything. You know what I mean?
No, I know the drill exactly. I run around and call myself Doobyis. So yeah.
Like our guitar player is Billionaire because his name is Phil.
Except if he was here right now, he'd get annoyed with you for calling that. You'd say it's Phil Lyons or Philly.
Well, that's the nickname. You can't choose your own nickname.
Oh, I think you're talking about his billing act for his guitar.
No. Anyway.
So how did you guys choose Illvis Freshly then? Because that's also kind of like a funny name that probably is really memorable and really easy to Google and stuff like that.
I'll compliment Jesus on this because so he's in two his own horn. I think it's like super Googleable and it's really I think it's one of our being a big asset. But you and our friend JMO were just freestyling about it.
Yeah, we like me and my friend were having a couple pops, having a good time, and came up with this song called Illvis Freshly, and it was like just like this stupid song about being like an Elvis but rapping, and like it was really really gnarly. And then we like recorded this song, and like it was just one night I completely kind of forgot about it, and then like a couple months later, like listened to the song, I was like, this is a stupid song, but the name's kind of cool. And then and then that computer got destroyed, so like completely forgot about it for a while. We're trying to come up with a name, and we actually like had a lot of trouble coming up with the name because we were going by. At one point, we had a DJ named the Funky Wad, and then we decided to go by the Funky Wad Squad for a very short time.
Okay. For a long time, Jesus and I were a rap duo before this extended adolescence, which is like, okay. But then we started adding other people to the group, and we wanted to rebrand anyways, which is when we started working with Kyle, Funky Wad, and then we met Phil, and we started needing to come up with a band name. So we spent like months arguing more heatedly than we should about this. So we were living together, making music together, you know how it is. And then one day, everyone at the band is at this party. The guy can't be at because I have to work. And so the next day, someone's like, we came up with the name. It's Illvis Freshly. And they were all in agreement. I was like, cool. Yes, I agree. That's a great name. Sums it up. I guess they all made up their mind while I wasn't there, but I'm not complaining.
It weirdly worked. Like Illvis Freshly, just kind of worked better than it should have. Like it sounded like something that already existed. It's like, yeah, you know what? That's stupid, but it works. And then at the party, we kind of asked. I had a few different names in mind. I was like, all right, what do you think? You like this one? You like this one? You like this? So we actually unofficially did like a survey,
crowd poll, of an actual crowd.
Party, and you know what? Yeah, the crowd was right because it definitely helped us out. People, just find it at festivals. People would be like, I don't know who that is, but like, I want to check that shit out.
Yeah, you're gonna show up and see what the hell's going on when somebody's called Illvis Freshly for sure. Do you guys? What kind of influences would you cite? Oh shit. Sorry, I just hit my sampler accidentally, and it played a sample for the crowd. But what kind of influences would you guys cite? Like I saw, even just listening, I could hear a lot of Beastie Boys, and I did think like Jurassic 5, kind of just how it's all.
Definitely Jurassic 5.
It's like it's like friendly almost, right? Like you guys aren't really rapping about beating people up or like being tough or anything. There's no, I don't know.
No, we're just doing us. Well, Jesus and I first met like over a decade ago, bonding over a shared love of like underground hip hop from 90s, 2000s. So like hieroglyphics, atmosphere, all that stuff, along with more traditional dope hip hop acts, Eminem and stuff like that, and Wu-Tang and stuff like that.
I think it was really like the underground hip hop scene was sort of the music that we were really into, like anybody on the Rhyme Sayers label and all that kind of stuff coming out, Living Legends, like that whole little scene there was partly what kind of got me into hip hop and made me also think like hip hop could be about so many different things, and then it didn't have to be about being a gangster or being like, you know,
Yeah,
like you're
totally.
kind of like beating people up and how tough and how rich you are. Like there was sort of a different idea to it, even like the conscious hip hop, like most have tell equality, like all that stuff. And I think that's sort of what made me identify with hip hop and connect with it in a big way.
Hell yeah.
And so we kind of carried that with us. And I mean, the Beastie Boys, and having hip hop kind of just be fun, and having it not, you know, have to be this really dark, heavy, twisted, I don't know, like gnarly thing all the time.
Well, it's weird too, because like there's certainly like elements of like emotion that plays into our stuff. Like I know everyone in the band is a big fan of Mac Miller's album Swimming, you know, and like that sort of things. And there's moments that we have like that. But I think in general, you know, I think especially because it's a collaborative, larger group project, it's easier to find common ground where we all agree on like having fun and being together. If I'm gonna write a record, if I'm gonna write an album just about me, then it's easier to get into deeper reflections and stuff. Sort of like, it's not that we don't like those other aspects too, but a lot of times when we're coming together, it's sort of like fun hip hop because we're hanging out with our friends, having fun.
It's a party. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I think that happens in duos a lot, is you end up kind of rapping a bit more about rap or like relatable stuff, because like I'm not gonna write like a huge love song about a girl.
Yeah.
And then what do you think about that girl that I'm like spilling my heart out about? Like, what's your verse about that?
You know, like we still have our romantic songs and our breakup songs, stuff like that. Like I think this album shows that. But generally, I think that, you know, we're both big hip hop fans, and I know that like everyone in the band is, and then outside of hip hop too, I know like as far as musical influences, so much funk and soul and your production influences, and
like electronic music kind of had a pretty big impact on us too, especially because we were playing all these festivals and working with other DJs and playing like the club scene and stuff. So like that shaped our sound a bit too, and like the higher BPMs just work better in a room like that.
So did you guys kind of get into doing live gigs through that more festival, like, you know, EDM dance scene? Or
I think like we did. Like I mean I played in a few different groups and did different stuff, and I did the, you know, the hip hop shows. And that's what in like Canada, like in a lot of cities, there's like those all ages or like many MCs on the bill, that kind of hip hop scene. Like I did that for a bit. But when I moved out here and we started this project, our like entryway to getting bookings and getting it just happened to be like festivals, and we won this contest. We ended up on a good stage and kind of rode that wave a little bit.
The list of festivals that you guys have played at is crazy. Kudos for that. Like, have you played the hip hop showcase at Shambhala? Have you been on there?
We got to do a feature there. So
we didn't play the showcase.
No, sorry, we didn't play the showcase.
We played the same stage with a different artist, and arguably, actually, it was like they were like a pretty big artist, so it was like super packed, and it was crazy. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great exposure, being out of those things.
I think too, like one thing I would tell up and coming hip hop artists too, when you're looking to book shows, think about where you can get in, where you're doing something other than just, or if you're rapping, you're one of the only people rapping, or if you're not rapping, or if you're at a rap event, bring something other than just rapping. Because like one thing, like when we're booked a lot of the times, we're one of the only MCs on the bill. So it feels fresh. We get a good crowd. There's good energy.
Right.
I don't know about you. I love hip hop, but when I'm going out to hang out and see my friends, I can't pay attention to someone else talking at me for 4 hours straight. It's just, it's especially like as you get older and you don't get to go out so much, sometimes you run into someone you haven't seen in a while. I don't want to
talk to them, not hear the guy on stage.
And so like, don't get me wrong, it's great to go see a good live MC rock it, but when it's not the only thing all night, when it's like we're sort of the feature, we were sort of able to create our own sort of brand of hip hop shows out in Victoria, Vancouver Island. I think we're sort of like a fun where it's hip hop and there's dope like authentic raps, and sometimes we'll do some like freestyle with the crowd, get other MCs that we know up on stage, and still have it be a hip hop show, but also have those elements that allow it to be more of a versatile night.
That's awesome. Yeah, and there's those kind of events, popping up. Like I'm in Alberta, so I know the Edmonton and Calgary scenes, and that's really starting to get popular in those scenes too. Kind of where it's a mixture between, there'll be a DJ who's spinning a dance set for a while, and then some MCs jump on, or there might be a freestyle cipher or something like that. But since you were mentioning bringing other MCs up from Vancouver there, another thing I like to do is ask people just for a recommendation for an artist from their city who makes hip hop that they think people might not know that they should know.
Lots of great talented hip hop artists in Victoria.
Yeah. I could say a couple.
You go ahead.
List them out if you want to. That's cool. The more the better.
For hip hop, Brainiac is pretty dope from our city. If you checked out his stuff at all.
I agree. I play him on ATSIC quite a bit actually. Yeah, and like OZ is OZ, that's his homie, I think. Yeah.
Gnostic. I don't know if you know Gnostic. He's half based in Victoria and half based in Peru. He's a great beatboxer and a bilingual rapper and excellent freestyler.
And I mean, there's like a lot of different crews from like different places. Victoria has a lot of like this sort of like funk jazz hop kind of vibe with like a lot of live stuff. I think Downtown Mischief is a band you definitely want to check out. They're also kind of, their vibe is like a little more jazzy, funky, and like improvised and stuff, which is cool. I definitely would recommend checking their stuff out.
For other hip hop from Victoria, Reflections United, a friend of mine, he's a great MC. The New Groovement, my old band, who has Shane Black, took over because the schedules were crossing over, and I just didn't want to have to keep asking him to fill in. They're a big funk band with a dope MC. I feel like as soon as it's over, I'm gonna be like millions of people.
No, you guys did great. You named off 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever. So
I know it's just
anybody we didn't mention. We'll get at you later.
We all know that there's a bunch of dope people out on that West Coast. It's weird how it seems like hip hop gravitates out to the coast. Like we've got a real scene out in Halifax, and then a real scene out in Vancouver, and there are other scenes locally across the map too, but there's almost even the same like East Coast West Coast contrast between Vancouver and Halifax as you would get between like New York and LA or something like that. Like you were just saying about like how there's a lot of like jazz based kind of
jazz and
just
funk,
more
like it's
more funk, more groove
and
to it. Yeah.
To be clear, this is Victoria. I would see Vancouver has a different subsection of like, they've got like, I would say in a lot of ways, a more traditional hip hop scene. Like you got guys like Junk and Mercules, and it's like that sort of like darker sort of like, don't get me wrong, very talented, but Vancouver's like grittier. Like Vancouver feels like a big city, and Victoria, there's some rappers like that. Flesh and Fur is a really good rapper out here who has that sort of sound. There's definitely a lot.
Okay, so my apologies. I was getting this wrong the whole time. If you guys are from Victoria, I've been saying Vancouver. It even says Vancouver in the write-up.
It's okay. Vancouver Island, I think.
Okay.
But I just wanted to clarify because there is this sort of like very Victoria-based, big funk band, jazz bands. I think there's a lot of musicians who end up on the island out by the coast or sort of traveling, bumming around. Yeah. And they just end up forming.
I know a lot who have made their way out there over the years.
Like Sweatshop Union, well before we got here, big group from here, big collective,
Oh yeah, those guys are classic. Like I was talking about them yesterday, actually, with the program director at CKXU. He was talking about them, and they made a huge impact on the game. Just there's social commentary stuff too, or whatever. Do you guys have more social commentary songs? Like I heard you kind of had one on there where you were talking a little bit about some pandemic-y stuff. How deep into politics do you ever get, or into not even necessarily politics, but into
No, it's a good question. I think that, like, honestly, we don't really go that much into it because, again, it's the 5 of us, and we all sort of have not like totally different views. Zeus and I are probably pretty similar. I think politically, me and you are pretty like intact. But then I think that like definitely like there's a little disagreement over a few things over the last couple of years between.
So I wrote
people.
down a few questions here, and one of them was that I've always been jealous of how bands get to run around and practice their shows. Perform at shows and practice their songs before they typically go record those songs. Which I'll ask you in a second if that actually applies to you guys, if you do perform stuff you haven't recorded yet. But then the question right after that was, the thing I'm not jealous of bands for is that it's 5 people trying to come out with one goal in the end of it or whatever. So no one person gets to do their collective, like their singular focused
I don't think our goal was ever to be a particularly like political band in the sense that we were never like, all right, we're gonna like, we're about this issue and this is what we want to like stand up for. I think that we kind of, within our raps and our lyrics, if you listen to us, you get an idea of who we are, and, what our values are and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think that we come out and just say it to you, and we don't have a song about a specific issue. We could write that stuff, and we have written that stuff, and we kind of did.
A lot of our other stuff, when we were in extended adolescence and not Illvis Freshly, was a lot like that. There was a lot more overtly. It was like underground.
Is that stuff still around? You still got any of that online?
You don't want to look for it.
Okay. Well, so I guess here's the next question then. You two as MCs, do you have any plans to do solo stuff or maybe duo stuff or whatever?
Well, Zeus has another band he's working on that, funny you say that. I think you have, I'd say it's more your own vision, and it is a little more softer exploration of ideas.
Yeah, so I got another side project called Blase Blase.
Okay.
and it's also a live band. It's got a singer named Daniela Jackson, and so female vocalist on some of the vocals. It's got a drummer, bass player, guitar player, and myself. I actually play keys while I rap.
Nice.
At the same time.
That would be challenging.
Yeah, it is challenging. It's been a bit of a learning experience, but that started off with me and my buddy just making beats, and then it just sort of it deals with different themes and ideas a little bit than Illvis Freshly. It's a bit closer to kind of a Mac Miller kind of vibe, like more like jazzy, funky.
A little introspective, the vibe.
Yeah, and the lyrics are a bit more introspective. We haven't put out a ton yet, but if you go on Spotify, there's a few songs there, like Serendipitous and a a couple others. You can check them out, and yeah,
check them out.
You might dig that. Yeah, give it a listen for sure.
I've been meaning to do a solo project forever, but it's just one thing after another. I'm currently finishing a teaching program right now in my personal life, but it's something that I will eventually get to. I did a couple of songs. They actually were a little more introspective and politically charged for a compilation project that I just recorded last month. He's actually helped me record them for I don't even know. It'll be Ocean Fresh Productions. It's a collaborative project that I'm doing with them. And I would like to eventually do a solo thing. I just don't seem to get around to doing things as much as I should.
When you do a solo project, is it going to be to a band also? Are you guys done with rapping to beats?
No, I think if I did a solo project, I would do a solo project. Okay. I was in the New Groupement with 10 people before this. I've been Illvis Freshly. New Groupement is 11 people. I think Illvis Freshly's 5. I think if when I do my next project outside of Illvis Freshly, it'll be me and maybe probably a DJ or someone. Like, I think that could be fun, just working with one other person who just does the music. Sure. And that way it'd be practical, it'd be portable. I don't know if I want to do solo on my own. Technically, I think that's a lot, but like me lyrically solo sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, just as an MC, like I feel like to be a guy on stage standing with a microphone, it's like a pretty personal, you've got to say something one way or the other. So like I get that, like you guys are saying on group songs, you don't tend to get into that kind of personal introspection or
No, man, we're just out to have a good time and like party.
Yeah, and rock a festival. That makes more sense for a festival, for sure.
That in and of itself is kind of what we came like, kind of like the Beastie Boys kind of did that.
Yeah.
They just made dope tunes and like kind of had fun.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And that kind of is what attracted us to that style of music and what Illvis Freshly kind of is and was. And so for us, like we wrote some other stuff, but it just didn't really fit the vibe for Illvis Freshly.
I just come at this whole hip hop thing as an MC myself from a lyricism standpoint. So like listening to you guys, I'm like, these guys got bars. Like, you know, I want to hear you guys do some rappity rap shit. I mean, I love the new
but you know, you never
project
know.
and like it's gonna kill at festivals and you guys will be great live and all this. But you know, you got chops as MCs too, so that's where that line of questioning comes from. Is all.
Oh no, I appreciate it, and definitely like. It's also sort of a product too of just sort of evolving where the bookings and the energy and the collaborative energy takes you.
Hell yeah.
So like ultimately, if we have our friend Father Funk, a crazy, wild production guy in the UK sending us these ghetto funk, super weird beats to get down and do like some rappity rap back and forth raps, and then not getting a ton of love from the traditional hip hop scene, it seems like
it's also
a waste of our energy in a lot of ways.
It's also the BPMs
go where the
too,
love
like,
is. Yeah.
It's also like the BPMs, like when you're rapping on faster stuff, it kind of changes the style and the vibe that you're gonna rap.
For sure.
If you're on like slower beats or like trap beats, it you know works a lot better. You can be more articulate and have your voice and kind of try to communicate. But when you're rapping faster, first of all, and over those beats, you know, we just kind of try to see what fits the vibe. That being said, like
Nothing Left to Lose, our old song we put up before, that's a good serious song.
That's true. We got a couple serious songs, and maybe we're just not pissed off enough about anything yet. I don't know.
You know what? That's true. You know,
Too comfortable.
No, seriously, I saw it was a comedian. I forget who it was. I think it was like maybe Craig Kielberger or something like that. And he was like, someone's like, oh, my friends, like I like rock 'cause I'm really mad about stuff. He's like, dude, I like jazz because my life's comfortable, man.
Yeah.
And like I feel like he's like I'm like pretty well off. I'm hosting this late night gig. I don't need to get mad about anything. And while I am certainly not hosting a late night gig, I'm like, I'm in my late 30s. I've got a job I'm happy with. I got a partner I'm happy with. I don't have that same rage towards the world as I did when I was 22 and barely passing university and
having a good time is more fun than walking around being angry all the time too. So I mean, that's definitely points there, right?
Yeah, I mean, so you know, we'll see, but I mean, I think we'll see how things evolve, right? Because I think there's a large spectrum of what Illvis Freshly can create and will create, and you never really know where we're gonna go or what we're gonna kind of tap into. Because you know we really can do a lot of different styles of music and different sounds. So
you know, and just one last thing on this top before we leave.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed on the latest album that we did that song with Phil singing the chorus. That one, the breakup one, that was with our guitarist chorus, and it changed our guitarist chorus singing, and it changed the whole dynamic. And
I
it was
almost
fun.
asked who you guys got to sing that chorus. If that was an outside.
Yeah, that was the guitarist, Phil.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, it totally changed the feel for the song. It feels almost like you know, Linkin Park or something more like angsty, you know, it gives it that emotion to it. Yeah.
It was fun to write that and to tap into that, honestly. I mean, it wasn't actually literally fun. I was pretty hungover that day, but like it felt cathartic. Good.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and also it was kind of that song, and I think there was one other maybe that kind of had more of that tone to it that made me want to ask some of these questions about like, I feel like you guys have something to say that isn't always going to be for a party, but I can respect that if it is.
Absolutely. I think we do, and I think those are the kind of songs that when we do like a record, we can put more on there.
Yeah.
And we can put those songs on there. But I think that like a lot of our songs that do really well and that our fans really seem to be stoked on are the ones that are more electronic based, a little more like, you know, that kind of vibe, like heavy bass and stuff. And so for those songs, you know, we just kind of write what fits the track.
For sure. Yeah. So what's next? Are you guys gonna be touring around on some festivals over the course of the summer?
Well, we got one really, really awesome one. We're going to be playing at Lake Town Shakedown on the island with Wu-Tang Clan, Sugar Ray, among many.
Big boy, yeah.
Yeah,
There's so many good artists on that lineup. It's crazy.
Wow.
So and then also it's like half established artists and half local island town filling out the rest of it. So that's pretty cool.
We're also going to be like in your kind of backyards pretty soon here. We're going to be playing in Calgary.
Oh, okay.
At Cirque de la Nuit, and it's a pretty big festival.
April 22nd. April 22nd.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Epic is the name of the night they're throwing. It's at the theater. I forget the name off the top of my head. I'll link you the info. And
Yeah, send me the info. I'll do my best to spread word or whatever.
They're pretty cool. It's actually like there's like circus shit going on. There's gonna be like I don't know, like people doing high wire shit. It's gonna be cool.
Firebird things or something.
Yeah, they have different eras for every act. So it's time traveling theme night. So they told us we were 90s. So I just went and bought my like fresh ever Saved by the Bell new shirt for it the other day.
It's gonna be a fun party. The 90s is all right. We're down with that. So it works for us.
Fits our style.
Dope. All right. I mean, that was about all I had to ask you guys. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this. And yeah, I'll do my best to send people up to Calgary for that show on the 22nd. But
awesome, man.
Yeah, this will be on the end of episode 13. So that should be up on Thursday over on mixcloud.com/Doobyis. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Awesome, man.
Thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate it.
Hell yeah. It was a good talk.
Thanks a lot, man.